Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the English Learning Podcast. I'm your host, Jason, and today we're diving into a topic that's both exciting and challenging: how to speak advanced English. If you've been feeling stuck at an intermediate level and are ready to take your English skills to the next level, you're in the right place.
That's right, Jason. Hi, everyone. I'm Julia, your co-host. Learning to speak advanced English can feel overwhelming, but it's absolutely achievable with the right strategies and mindset. In today's episode, we'll share practical tips, common pitfalls to avoid, and some fun ways to boost your fluency. By the end of this conversation, you'll have clear steps to level up your English skills.
Absolutely. And speaking advanced English isn't just about using big words or complicated grammar. It's about communicating with confidence, precision, and nuance. So, whether you're preparing for a job interview, studying abroad, or simply aiming to express yourself more effectively, this episode has something for you.
Exactly. So grab a notebook or just sit back and relax as we guide you through the best tips to master advanced English. Let's get started.
So, Julia, I've been thinking about this lately. When I first started learning a new language, I remember feeling pretty confident at the beginner and intermediate levels. But when I tried to have deeper conversations or sound more natural, I hit a wall. Have you ever experienced something similar?
Oh, absolutely, Jason. I remember when I was learning French. At first, it was all about simple phrases and basic conversations, but once I needed to express myself in a more sophisticated way, like sharing opinions or discussing abstract topics, it became so challenging. It felt like I knew what I wanted to say, but just didn't have the words or tools to say it fluently.
Exactly. And I think that's where a lot of English learners get stuck too. They know the basics, but struggle to sound polished or natural when speaking advanced English. It's almost like they've reached a plateau, and they're not sure how to break through.
Yes, and that plateau can be really frustrating. I've noticed that many learners at this stage still rely on the same basic vocabulary and grammar structures they learned at the start. They haven't explored the more nuanced aspects of the language, like idioms, expressions, or even cultural references, which can really help them sound more advanced.
Exactly, Julia. And sometimes it's not just about the language itself. It's about confidence, too. Learners might hesitate to use new words or try advanced expressions because they're afraid of making mistakes or sounding awkward.
That's so true. But here's the thing. Mistakes are part of the process. If you're not making mistakes, you're not growing. And today, we're going to help our listeners move past that fear and give them practical tips to sound more advanced in English without feeling overwhelmed.
Absolutely. So, let's dive into the real meat of today's episode: the best tips to speak advanced English. Trust me, these tips are going to change the game for a lot of listeners. All right, let's get to the heart of today's episode: our top tips for speaking advanced English. We've broken this down into practical, easy-to-follow strategies that you can start using today. Julia, what's the first tip on our list?
Tip number 1, expand your vocabulary. This means going beyond basic words and learning advanced expressions, idioms, and phrasal verbs. For example, instead of saying "I'm very tired," you could say "I'm completely exhausted" or "I'm drained." These subtle changes make your English sound more polished and natural.
Absolutely. And one great way to do this is by reading widely: novels, newspapers, or even professional blogs. Pay attention to how words are used in different contexts. Oh, and don't forget to jot down new words and practice using them in sentences. Julia, how about tip number 2?
Tip number 2 is mastering pronunciation and intonation. It's not just about the words you use, but how you say them. Advanced speakers often use stress and intonation to emphasize certain points, making their speech more engaging. For example, listen to how native speakers change their tone when asking questions or showing excitement.
Great point, Julia. A good way to practice this is by shadowing, listening to native speakers in podcasts, movies, or YouTube videos, and then repeating what they say, mimicking their tone and rhythm. It's like singing along to your favorite song, but with spoken English.
Exactly. Now on to tip number 3. Using advanced grammar naturally. This is where a lot of learners get intimidated, but it doesn't have to be complicated. For instance, instead of always saying, "I will do this," try mixing in different tenses, like, "I'm going to do this," or "I would have done this if." It shows flexibility in your language skills.
That's a game changer, Julia. And to practice this, I recommend writing short stories or journal entries and intentionally using different tenses and sentence structures. It's a fun way to challenge yourself. Now, what's tip number 4?
Tip number 4 is improving your active listening skills. Listening is key to understanding advanced English, especially when native speakers use slang, contractions, or fast speech. Try listening to podcasts or audiobooks and focus on how words are connected or shortened in conversations.
Right? And don't just passively listen. Pause the audio, repeat sentences, and try to guess the meaning of new phrases from the context. This habit will help you catch nuances and learn how to use those phrases in your own speech. Finally, Julia,
Number 5.
what's our fifth
Immerse
and
yourself
final
in
tip?
English environments. This doesn't mean you have to move to an English-speaking country, but surround yourself with English as much as possible. Watch movies without subtitles, think in English, and even change your phone settings to English.
That's such a great tip, Julia. Immersion forces you to interact with the language naturally, which is the best way to grow. And don't forget to practice speaking, even if it's just talking to yourself or recording your voice. It helps you get comfortable with using the language in real time.
Exactly, Jason. It's all about making English a part of your daily life. Even small changes can make a big difference over time.
All right, so to recap, our 5 tips are: expand your vocabulary, master pronunciation and intonation, use advanced grammar naturally, improve your active listening skills, and immerse yourself in English environments. Trust us, these strategies work.
Yes, and remember, speaking advanced English isn't just about the language, it's about confidence and practice. Keep pushing yourself, and you'll see progress faster than you expect.
All right, Julia, now that we've shared our tips for speaking advanced English, let's make this a little more personal. I want to ask you, what's your favorite method to improve your English, especially at an advanced level?
Great question, Jason. For me, I absolutely love shadowing. I find a podcast, movie, or even a TED Talk, and I listen carefully to the speaker. Then I pause and repeat exactly what they said, mimicking their tone, pace, and even their accent. It helps me sound more natural and confident. How about you?
Shadowing is such a great method, Julia. For me, I love reading novels or articles on topics that interest me. When I come across advanced words or phrases, I write them down and try to use them in conversations later. It's such a simple habit, but it's helped me expand my vocabulary and use it naturally.
That's awesome, Jason. Speaking of vocabulary, let's try something fun with our listeners right now. How about we share a couple of advanced phrases and challenge them to use these in their own conversations?
Great idea. All right, here's one. Go the extra mile. It means putting in extra effort to do something exceptionally well. For example, if you want to succeed in your career, you need to go the extra mile. Julia, do you have another one?
Yes, I do. Here's one, a blessing in disguise. It means something that seems bad at first, but turns out to be good. For example, losing that job was a blessing in disguise because it led me to an even better opportunity.
Those are great phrases, Julia. All right, listeners, your challenge is to use go the extra mile or a blessing in disguise in a sentence and share it with us in the comments. We'd love to see how you use them.
Yes, and if you're feeling creative, try using both phrases in the same sentence for an extra challenge. For example, losing that project was a blessing in disguise because it pushed me to go the extra mile on a better opportunity. What do you think, Jason?
Perfect, Julia. This exercise is a fun way to practice and learn new phrases. Remember, the more you use advanced expressions like these, the more natural they'll become in your conversations.
Exactly, and we'd love to hear your favorite advanced words or phrases too. Share them in the comments or message us directly. Let's keep this conversation going.
Now that we've shared some tips and had a fun, interactive segment, let's talk about something just as important: common mistakes to avoid when trying to speak advanced English. Julia, what's a mistake you often see learners making?
One big mistake is focusing too much on using complicated vocabulary without understanding its proper context. For example, learners might try to use an advanced word like conundrum, but end up using it in a situation where it doesn't fit. It's always better to use simpler words correctly than to misuse advanced ones.
That's a great point, Julia. Another mistake I've noticed is neglecting pronunciation. Even if you know advanced vocabulary, unclear pronunciation can make it hard for others to understand you. Practicing how to say words correctly is just as important as learning what they mean.
Absolutely, Jason. And another common mistake is overusing filler words like, like, or, especially when trying to sound more natural. These fillers can disrupt your flow and make you seem less confident. Instead, take a brief pause if you need time to think.
Yes, pauses are powerful. One last mistake I often see is being afraid to make mistakes. Many learners hesitate to speak at all because they're worried about sounding awkward or using the wrong word. But mistakes are a natural part of the learning process, and they're how you improve.
Exactly, Jason. Remember, even native speakers make mistakes. The key is to learn from them and keep going. If you embrace your mistakes, you'll feel more confident and progress faster.
That's such great advice, Julia. So to recap, avoid misusing advanced words, pay attention to pronunciation, minimize filler words, and don't be afraid to make mistakes. These small adjustments can make a big difference in your journey to speaking advanced English.
Absolutely. And remember, it's all about progress, not perfection. Keep practicing and refining your skills and you'll get there.
All right, before we wrap up, let's summarize today's key points into actionable takeaways that our listeners can start applying right away. Julia, what's the first one?
Sure. Takeaway number 1, focus on expanding your vocabulary with advanced words, phrases, and idioms. But remember to use them in the right context to sound natural and polished.
That's a solid start. Takeaway number 2, practice pronunciation and intonation by shadowing native speakers. Mimic their tone, rhythm, and stress to improve your fluency and sound more natural.
Absolutely. And takeaway number 3, improve your active listening skills. Listen to podcasts, movies, or audiobooks, and pay attention to how words are connected and used in real-life contexts.
Good one, Julia. Takeaway number 4, use advanced grammar flexibly. Try practicing different tenses and sentence structures to make your speech dynamic and interesting.
Lastly, takeaway number 5. Immerse yourself in English as much as possible. Surround yourself with English through reading, writing, thinking, and even changing your phone's language settings.
Perfect. These 5 takeaways will help you build advanced English skills step by step. And remember, it's all about consistent practice and patience.
Yes, and don't forget to have fun with it. Enjoy the process and celebrate your progress no matter how small it seems.
Well, that brings us to the end of today's episode. We hope you found these tips and insights helpful for speaking advanced English confidently and naturally.
Yes, and remember, improving your English is a journey. It's okay to take small steps and enjoy the progress you make along the way. Every bit of practice brings you closer to your goal.
If you enjoyed this podcast, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more tips and lessons like this. Your support helps us reach and help more learners just like you.
Also, we'd love to hear from you. Share your thoughts, questions, or even your favorite advanced English phrases in the comments below. Let's keep the conversation going.
And if you want to practice further, check out our other episodes and playlists for more lessons on vocabulary, pronunciation, and grammar.
Thanks so much for joining us today. Keep practicing, stay confident, and most importantly, have fun while learning.
Take care, everyone, and we'll see you in the next episode of the English Learning Podcast. Bye for now.